Hello, and Happy New Year. Happy 2023. Welcome back to the game, and let's get ready to rumble for the 12 months ahead. I hope you had a great Christmas. Hope you had a relax, recharge, refresh, and I hope you're ready to go into the year ahead, because I do think it's going to be a game changer for those who go out and actually take action with it. What I'm going to do, it is Tuesday, it's time for the next episode. I am going to share with you 5 predictions for things I would encourage you to consider, or things that I think we're going to see in 2023. Now, these aren't necessarily the only 5 things. These aren't even the top 5 things. These are the 5 things that I think will be strategically very valuable to you in making your decisions for the weeks, months ahead as we go into the new year. On Property Entrepreneur, we're just about to go into our strategy days, and in each of our businesses, we have our strategy days this week. And what we're doing there is defining explicitly what our plans are, what our strategy is, what our tangible targets are, what our distribution of focus is for 2023, going into it very deliberately, very strategically, with a high level of intent to make sure not only do we make the right decisions, but we make a huge amount of progress in a short amount of time. These 5 things should help you to sort of point you in the right direction and think about a few key things that I think are worth considering in this year. As with all forecasts and predictions, they're only based on my interpretation of what I'm seeing, and they're only based on, at the time of recording, first week of January, what we're seeing in the market at this current time. Obviously, anything significant that changes would probably change my opinion, and obviously these are only my opinions, so take them with the suitable amount of pinch of salt. So 5 things. 1 is going to be balancing of the books. The 2nd is going to be artificial intelligence. The 3rd is the increasing of the gap. The 4th is the growth plan, and the 5th is, which I think is very exciting, is the new age of the entrepreneur. So the first is balance the books. And what I suspect we're going to see through 2023 is we've had 2 or 3 years now of turbulence. We had COVID, we had lockdown, we had opening up. We've now had obviously the sort of tailwind of that with inflation or supply chain issues, coupled with fuel prices, coupled with global conflict or conflicts with Russia and Ukraine. And these have all caused a number of challenges economically for the last 2 or 3 years. What I suspect we're going to see in 2023, probably a little bit quicker than people anticipate, is a balancing of the books. I think we're probably approaching the peak of the severity on these things. And as we go through the coming weeks and months, I think we're going to see this start to level out. So inflation, my prediction stays the same as it has been since end of last summer, about 6 months ago. I think it will peak forecasts at the minute are saying it's peaked. I suspect during the winter, I think the colder months, increased fuel costs, shorter days, which obviously mean more heat and electric and light to run businesses and keep the houses warm. I suspect it will probably be a stable balancing at the end of the winter, sort of March, April time. And then reasonably quickly, I think we'll see inflation at a macro level start to come down. I think interest rates as well are probably about as far as they need to go now. I think there may be one, if you remember, like fiscal policy and monetary policy often takes a little while to filter through, and we've not really seen the true impact of that. If you think about lending or mortgage rates, a lot of people are on fixed mortgages, a lot of people are on fixed rate terms on loans. Hasn't necessarily all filtered through yet, but it is already starting to make an impact. Also, just globally, we're starting to see things settle down. Front page of the paper says inflation's starting to peak. I just get a feeling that there might be 1 or 2 more minor rises, but I can't see base rate going any higher than 4%. And if it needs to, it's quite likely that it could come back down to stimulate the market. Mortgage rates are already coming down. I think they'll continue. I think they'll come down quicker. I think mortgage rates within the first 3 months of 2023 will become commercially viable again. So, back down to sustainable levels where the property market can start going, because post mini budget and the shock factors of increased base rate and mortgage rates going crazy high has just locked up the market again. Now, whilst that's fantastic news for us, those of us that are going and doing deals, the auction rooms are quiet, the estate agents are desperate for business, people who've got to sell will need to sell. I do think that's going to be short-lived. I think the mortgage market and the finance market and the property market will loosen up reasonably quickly through the first 3 months of 2023, through winter. And then in the spring and summer, I think it will really start to get going again. So there is a small window of opportunity to get in there. And also, I think it's a more of a small correction and a little shock than it is a crash. Again, I might be wrong, but economically, that's been my forecast reasonably consistently. And I just don't see it happening at the minute. I think the investment market might change a little bit. I think rents are definitely going to stabilise at where they are. I think they might even continue to increase, probably quite likely to increase. As these rate rises start to filter through, I think we could see landlords leaving the market because it depends where you are in the UK. But, if you're getting a gross yield of last year, I think the average gross yield was 5.3%. Obviously, that's an average. If you go up north, you might be able to get a gross of 6.5%, 7%, maybe even 8%, with high rents and cheap property. But you go further down south and, that yield really is compressed with the capital values and rents. And I think that will potentially force some landlords to leave the market, because if you're only getting a gross yield of 5 or 6% and your mortgage cost at gross is quite likely going to be 5%, it's going to be very challenging to make those properties that for the last 10 years landlords have got comfortable cash flow in. It's going to be quite challenging to refinance the market at the current market value at a normal loan to value and make it cash flow and go into the market and buy new stock. So, it really will reduce the size of the market that's able to stay viable, whether they're accidental landlords, portfolio landlords. Cash buyers will still do quite well. Where you can get, there is places where we invest where it is realistic to get 6, 7, maybe even higher on a gross yield. If you're buying that cash and you can, make sure you're not spending too much on management and operating costs, could still be a reasonable, modest cash flow strategy, using leases to lease out to third parties, carve out those overheads, get rid of those management costs, get rid of the voids, hopefully reduce the arrears. That could also be a way. But at a macro level, I think it's quite likely that unless something changes significantly, like rents go through the roof or mortgage rates come down or property prices come down to really balance the books, I think it will at a macro level, it will mean that property rented stock will potentially reduce rather than increase over this period, which means rents are likely to go up. It's going to put more pressure on the property market, and with cost of living, etc., it's going to maintain that rental market to be very competitive. So anything to do with making affordable accommodation, whether it's build to rent or you're doing high density developments or you're doing HMOs, I suspect they're going to do pretty well through the year ahead. And it will come down to what happens with rates and rents, really, as to what happens to the macro rental market, and more people will continue to go into the rental market while the property market is as it is. Balancing the books, obviously we've got a lot at the minute around sort of, there's been a huge difference between demand and supply for lots of things. Property market, huge demand, not enough supply. Supply chains, loads of demand, no supply. There's been a clog up of supply chains. I think that's going to start to, again, balancing the books. I think that's going to balance the books. GDP, I think we will see a reduction in GDP. I think it'll be quite short term. I think unless unemployment starts to drop, I think that economic activity that we're seeing, what we predicted 3 or 6 months ago with increasing interest rates, is basically the government putting the brakes on the economy. That's very much happening. And we are now seeing all the corrections happening in the market. A little small correction in property, knocking those prices down a little bit just to try and get the thing moving again, or rather the people who've got to sell. But they're only, at worst, losing, at the moment, the growth that they saw in the last 12 months. So it's more of a mental adjustment than it is an economic one. Equity markets, we're expecting adjustments in. The tech markets, the shares, the stocks, obviously all of that now has taken a huge shift in values. Employment, obviously one of the government's objectives with increasing interest rates, increasing the cost of living, reducing GDP, increasing the cost of debt, reducing the amount of investment, slowing down the economic growth, putting pressure on reducing demand, is we're now starting to see that free things up. Unemployment has now started to go up for the first time in a long time. Still at historic lows, but it started to creep up, and you're going to see more of this. The government have just got to get that balance right now of not crippling it and letting things free up, balance the books, and probably start taking the foot off the gas now. And then, as I'll talk about in number 4, in the fourth prediction, start to shift gear from putting the feet on the brake to moving back onto the accelerator. So it's like it really is getting that. Think about doing driving lessons for the first time. It's really trying to figure out how to use that clutch and accelerator at the same time so you don't end up stalling or crashing the car. And at the minute, we've been foot on the brake, slowing it down, sort of slow the economy down. Now we need to probably appreciate that we're approaching the traffic lights. We need to stop accelerating, let it go into cruise control, but also get back on that accelerator once it goes green so we can keep moving. Because if we take our foot off the accelerator, put our foot on the brake and let it cruise into the traffic light, if we get it wrong, it will just, haven't got our foot on the clutch, it's just going to stall the car. And the danger now is that the tailwind of businesses downsizing, reduction in investment, increased cost of interest rates, is that there's a tailwind coming. We don't want it to turn into a downward spiral. So I feel reasonably confident that 2023 will be the year of balancing the books, things levelling out. Hopefully the government have done what they need to do and it starts to get pretty positive pretty quickly. I do think, obviously as well, just think about seasons. The winter is locked up in your house, eating shepherd's pie, short days. Nobody's hugely enthusiastic. It's not really the most positive or inspiring of seasons. As soon as those days, the days are getting longer now. As the days are getting longer, as soon as it starts warming up into the spring, I do think a lot of this is going to come together quicker than people think. And I think we'll be balancing the books. Also, remember, we've had things like big tax statements, tax cuts, all of this sort of bold headline news, which has to be done to balance the books. But also there's an election coming up that has got to be won. And I suspect, as we talk about in number 4, there'll be some government adjustments to start backing the economy again, investing in business, investing in infrastructure, supporting entrepreneurs. That's pretty inevitable. It's got to come. But it's a thing of timing, really. So that's probably one of the big ones, is balancing in the books. So it's just thinking strategically before we start batting down the hatches and downsizing. You've got a window of opportunity now to go and do some deals. And also in the sort of medium term into the middle of 2023, the books should turn and we should be getting ready to rumble pretty quickly. Number 2 is artificial intelligence, so AI. So 𝗂𝗶𝘀𝗶𝘀 was recently released, and that probably, I don't profess to know what I'm talking about in this space. I am very much a property entrepreneur. I'm not a tech or artificial intelligence expert. However, I have used 𝗂𝗶𝘀. I have seen and read about, what its possible uses are, things like that. And I would say it's now I forget what the analogy is, but basically the genie's out of the bottle. I think we've known that it's coming. Those of you that sort of follow this stuff, it's been talked about for probably 5 years as a real significant thing we should expect to see. We've seen it in various capacities, chatbots, Siri. We've seen this sort of broad AI be released where you can use things like voice commands to get computers to access information. Whereas 𝗂𝗶𝘀 is the first sort of more broad artificial intelligence that can do more than that. So it reminds me a lot of when the internet was released in the mid-90s, And we sort of knew that it could be a big thing, but didn't really know how to use it. And I remember going to the first internet cafe in the mid-90s and typing into whatever it was, 𝗟𝗶𝘀𝗏 or whatever the search engine was then, Internet Explorer or whatever it was, typing in play Pac-Man. And to me, it was like a place you could play games or access things online. It was just sort of just trying to test out what it actually did. Now, some people that are using ChatGPT are using it for a sort of elevated Google search. You can use it for free. Obviously, people are talking about it's the fastest downloaded app or signed up app. It did 5 million people in the first week. That's an indication of how sort of popular it's going to be. But that's not the power of it, how many people are using it. The power is what it can do. You can use it as an elevated, more sort of sophisticated search engine. Yeah, absolutely. But it's more the creative side that was a shock to me. I always thought, and I have spoke publicly about this, in fact, most people did, that the first jobs to go through artificial intelligence would be your functional, not robotic, but things that could be replaced with automation. So working on factory lines, production, delivery, driving, all of that sort of stuff. The general consensus was more that that's where we would be, and that was my opinion as well. This is a whole nother kettle of fish where it's there's a few sort of strategic limitations at the minute with the first sort of, at the minute, this is very much this is coming, how does it work, etc., etc. But it's absolutely crazy. Go on YouTube, listen to some podcasts, have a little go on it yourself. I had lunch with a friend at the weekend, and I said to him, write a 500-word blog about, and then I put his company name in, the industry they're in, and the city they're in, and it just went ahead and wrote a 500-word article about who they are, what they do, why it's important. And then he said, can you abbreviate that into a social media post? It's just absolutely crazy. And what it's doing is at this point, it is broad because it's obviously accessing lots of different pieces of information. It's then using some sort of very advanced predictive language over a very broad data set to release what is essentially creative work. So copywriting, articles, blogs. It's got access to all of that information and then relaying it as knowledge. Exercise-wise, it wouldn't be hugely dissimilar to writing a dissertation or doing a research piece. You can, or being a copywriter, writing an article. It's very, very clever in what it can do. And the concept now of sitting down and writing a 2,000-page article for a magazine based on stuff you've gone and researched online, I suspect will very soon become just an alien concept, because all of the information you could go and read online is accessible or will be accessible by this sort of technology. The only difference is its RAM and computer and brain power will be so much more significant. It can basically access all the information that's existed ever and apply all of this stuff in real time and literally write it quicker, have access to more information, be much more advanced in its appraisal. It's absolutely crazy. And obviously at the minute, this has been released as, it's only got access to information up to 2021. So that's a strategic, I suspect OpenAI, who the company that built it, that's a strategic element to mean that it's not actually, people aren't really starting to be able to put it into practice at the moment, because anyone that's human has access to 2022 data. So strategically, they're putting it out there for everyone to see, getting the name out there, getting some feedback, testing out the sort of beta version. But if that's what's being released on the open market for free, you can only imagine what is going on behind the scenes and how good this could be, or how powerful this could be in practice. So I do think it's going to be a huge part of what happens over 2023. I don't think it's all going to happen today. I think there's going to be this lag or this lull now where lots of information is researched. I think the first movers will start to repurpose it and this is free and it's open source, but I suspect once it goes to the open market, eventually, the same as anything like crypto, it will start to become charged, it will start to become governed, it will have compliance and regulation around it. Well, it will have to in some capacity, because it's crazy what it can do. But for those first movers who jump on it now and start building tech platforms, businesses on top of it, and what they're doing basically is pimping out a new bit of tech that nobody else knows how to use in a narrow form. So you could sit there and use something broad or generic like 𝗏𝗃𝗃, or you could brand it up and call it whatever you want to call it. 𝗁𝗶𝗹𝗹 has been around for about 2 years. 𝗁𝗶𝗹𝗹 is another one. It's using a similar sort of tech. So I think that's going to be huge, and I think it's something you very much want to consider and make sure it's part of your plan. I think the idea of trying to pretend it's not coming is silly, and it's just a case of understanding how does it affect your industry, how does it affect your business, and it's moving with it at best, at least ahead of it, and just getting on with it, really. Because companies that don't embrace AI, for everything from social media posts to copywriting to code, it's like website design, etc. At the minute, there's a lot. The 𝗏𝗃𝗃 is text, but there's also other similar applications that do it for drawing, design. You'll have seen people's pictures on social media. It's going to be big, and it's just a case of seeing. There'll be a few years of figuring out. Well, in fact, I suspect this will be one of the things that happens quite fast. I think there'll probably be like a couple of months where we figure out, the shock factor, and then it will start to get really, really sort of implemented into the business world, society, the economy, and over the next year, into the next 2 years, I think the use of it is going to be crazy. Equally, I hope it's going to be really good. Obviously, there's always a downside to these sort of things. Optimistically, I'm thinking, this could be really, really powerful. You can definitely go down the rabbit hole of how dangerous it could be, and that's not completely off the table. It has got a lot of risks with it. Elon Musk's talked about it for years. He was actually one of the co-founders of OpenAI when they founded in, I can't know if it was 2015 or 2018, to try and sort of protect it. But let's hope it's optimistic. Let's get on board with it. And I do think as well, it'll initially, the shock factor of I can't believe it's going to do that will become quite commonplace. Like, if you think about Google the first time you used it, I can't believe you can search any question in the world and it'll come up with the answer. This is not hugely dissimilar to that. So I was using it over the weekend for a bit of copywriting and things like that. And it was already, I've only been using it for a couple of weeks, it was already like a given. Okay, I need to write whatever it was. I was looking at buying a new car. So rather than go and research all the different things, I said, what would the annual running costs be of this car this year, etc., etc. So it was like I was talking about earlier. It was more of an advanced Google search with some specifics, but it went away and it basically did what I would normally ask an assistant to do, and it would normally take them an hour. It did it to a reasonable quality, a pretty good quality, in more like 60 seconds, probably less, rather than 60 minutes. So powerful stuff, very clever. And also it's free, so go and make the most of it, because I don't think it'll be free forever. Not at its biggest application, not in its biggest application anyway. Number 3 is an increase of the gap. So this is reasonably straightforward. I think it's just a mindset piece. Is, like Warren Buffett says, be greedy when others are fearful, fearful when others are greedy. In phase 1 of the bounce back boom, phase 1 of lockdown, we went out and did £1.9 million worth of deals that we couldn't have done before COVID, couldn't have done after. Phase 2, we did 3.5 million of deals we couldn't have done before COVID, couldn't have done after. That's profit, not the deal value was over 10 million. This is another period of that. We're in it now. People say, listen to that afterwards, I wish I'd have taken action. Well, we're in that now. You can go into an estate agent and pretty much find yourself a deal, walk into an auction room and pretty much find yourself a deal. This is what we're in now, and we'll probably be in it for the next 3 to 6 months. There'll be an increase in the gap of, basically, you're either in or you're out. You want to get in, on board, let's run, AI, economic change, be dynamic, be creative, speed of implementation, go and make it happen, or out. You rest on your laurels, sit tight, watch your margins being compressed, watch your costs go up, watch your clients start to leave. I really do think it'll be an increase in the gap of those who go out there and get wealthy, do loads of deals, make things happen, and also those who just bury their head in the sand, don't do what they need to do, don't take notice of changing interest rates, haven't got their finance affairs in order. There'll be some that use the finance market and the deal market to go and capitalise, but they'll be very strategic and very savvy. There'll be others that risk losing their shirt because they're not up to speed, they're not doing what they need to do, and they're just not on top of the game. I think there'll be an increasing gap in that. I think equally wealth distribution, it's no surprise, and actually our charity this year is probably going to support in this space. Though the wealthy are likely to get even wealthier. Going out and doing deals at the minute, prices are compressed, access to capital. It's the time where the wealthy get wealthier, but also it's the time where the poor get poorer. Unfortunately, more people will be pushed into poverty. It is going to be a challenging period, and hopefully we're going to support in both of those. Commercially, we're at the top of the curve, doing deals, leading the way, taking all of our property entrepreneurs with us to make the most of this opportunity. But then equally, we're not oblivious to the fact that through no fault of our own, other people are struggling in this economic situation. So we're going to, through our charity, Get Up and Give Back this year, we're quite likely to support in that space to make sure we've got both extremes covered. The mass market will be the mass market. When it's great, we're putting money on credit cards, we're drinking porn star martinis, we're going shopping every weekend, we're eating out. When it's tough, we spend more money on heating the house and driving the car, and a little bit less money on Domino's pizzas and Deliveroo. It's just the way the world works. But there is definitely this window of opportunity now for those who want to go for it. It'll be boom or bust. There'll be those that go for it and those that really, really struggle. And that's the first window of opportunity, as this gap between those that do and those that don't starts to increase. The fourth is, I think we're going to see the government announce the next growth plan. So we're very much in this sort of first window of opportunity that is this lull while everyone else runs for the hills. In the spring or the summer, if the government are going to win the next election and we're not going to stall at the traffic lights and we're going to keep things moving, we really need, big business really needs, and even just the finance market really needs the next phase of the plan from the government. So I suspect maybe not in the winter, because we really do need, they need to let the things slow down and approach the lights and cruise control and see where it is. I suspect in the end of the spring, beginning of the summer, they'll move the foot from the brake to the accelerator and then say, right, this is what we're doing. And this will be the level up plan, big infrastructure plans, big construction, big investment in business, and really get the UK back on a global stage. Rishi Sunak, he might not be the most sort of, he's not exactly Boris Johnson as far as the leadership, enthusiasm, that sort of leadership noise, but he's very much the economic, strategic brains you need to reposition what we've got to do. And as a country, there is danger that over the next 12 to 24 months, we get overtaken by we've already been overtaken by developing nations on economic growth. That's not a new thing, but we're holding on by the skin of our teeth to number 5 in the top 5 of global economies. The UK is very much resting on its laurels. We don't do what we used to do. We used to have a huge foothold around the world. We used to do precision and high-end engineering. There's lots of things we used to do. We used to be the finance hub of Europe. We used to be part of the European bloc. We used to have all these things that sort of played into our favour. We've really got to, we can't rest on those laurels anymore. Over the next 3 to 5 years, we've got to turn this ship around and really own our space at the top of the table, or it will be the start of the beginning of the end as other countries start to take. Just think we're a small island as a basic. We're granted we've got some of the best education in the world, some of the best finance structure or asset security, financial services, global services. We are primarily a service economy. We've had these things, but we're behind the rest of the world on basic things like broadband and broadband speed, access to internet on a national scale, productivity, use of tech and investments in tech. We're really not on the crest of the wave. So I suspect towards the end of end of spring, in fact, no, it'll probably be earlier than that. I suspect it'll be in the spring. in the spring, towards the summer, it might even be earlier, hopefully it'll be earlier, the government will say, right, here's the growth plan, this is what we're doing, these are the free zones, these are the initiatives, this is how you can get away from all those tax hikes we've done, this is how you can make more money than spend. All of that will come, and that will basically be what's called phase 3. So phase 3 of the bounce back boom, which has been this 2-year economic cycle or economic curve that we're going through, that will be the announcement of phase 3, and then it'll be all guns blazing. So basically the current window of opportunity is now, where everyone's run for the hills, there's low competition, high margins. For those who are strategic and savvy, go out and absolutely clean up. And then the next window of opportunity will be when that's announced, there'll be all business, entrepreneurship will start to go again, and we just want to be at the beginning of that curve. So you've probably got like 12 to 24 months as a first mover advantage, speed of implementation, savvy, strategic entrepreneur to go and make the most of this. So that'll be the growth plan. I suspect that'll be announced in the spring, if not before, hopefully before, but maybe end of winter, beginning of spring, actually, thinking about it. But yeah, hopefully we get that. That'll be huge. And then finally is number 5 is a new age of entrepreneur, a new age of property entrepreneur. And this is something I've seen for the last couple of years post-COVID, is this lifestyle and living shift where people don't want to work for big businesses now. You know, the idea of going to an office, working 8:30 till 5:30 with an hour's lunch, working 40 hours a week, 28 days holiday, you know, especially, and so there's that, plus the older generation have retired early. You know, there's hundreds of thousands of people of working age that take early retirement because COVID and lockdown, they realised they don't want to be working in restaurants, kitchens, hotels, retail. You know, they don't want to work evenings and weekends. They want to go and actually live their life. And I think without AI, I think there's this new emerging lifestyle living shift where more people want to either just enjoy living, and especially the new generation coming up. You know, they want access over ownership, they want travel, they want lifestyle experiences. The concept and idea of the celebrity lifestyle, the career ladder, the 3 or 4 years at uni to do a career-based job, I suspect that coupled, I mean, this was before AI, but with AI now, I suspect that's going to be an increasing curve that we see. And what I'm seeing is more people want to go into entrepreneurship, more people want to leave being an employee and move into the entrepreneurial space. And they want to be, and also entrepreneurs, you know, people who've built big businesses realise it's very stressful, it's very hard, you know, with increasing regulation, compliance, HR, COVID-19, responsibility, you know, lots of businesses going online, other people running big physical offices which carry huge overheads. I just see a huge increase in the appeal of having a small business, being self-employed, freedom of movement, travelling, you know, more the laptop millionaire lifestyle, not necessarily one-man band, but sort of up to about a dozen people. I do see a real shift, an increase in appeal in that. And I also see an increase in or reducing appeal in the alternative. You know, why would you want to go and have 50 to 100 employees or thousands of employees unless you're going on that empire builder curve, which I've done, you know, and for those of you that want to do it, you absolutely have to do it. But a lot of things I'm saying to people now who, like people that I do consultancy for, people that I am an investor in, angel investor, non-exec director, a lot of these people that I work with, the conversations that I'm having is, what do you actually want? You know, so they might say, I want a team of 100 people. I want to do 50 million in revenue. I'm like, well, what do you actually want? And I think when you drill it down now, more people do want to be sort of more lifestyle, more enjoy their life. Like, don't get me wrong, they want to be highly lucrative, but if they could make a couple of £1 million a year with a dozen people, they might rather do that than spend 10 years building a business and exit for 50. You know, it's like highly dynamic, highly niche, actually, the premium price point, all the stuff we teach on Property Entrepreneur, highly strategic, very crest of a wave, needle in a haystack businesses. I think the last shift is through this year, which is COVID coming back to reality. And then as the economy starts to free up again, I do think that the appeal, I think there's going to be this new age of, or there is already a new age of entrepreneur. And I think this is going to be an increasing new age of entrepreneurs coming out who want freedom of movement, lifestyle, good income, highly lucrative, highly leveraged, but small business rather than big business, self-employed entrepreneur rather than employed. And with AI coming in as well, that's obviously going to shake up the market even more. So we have to see what that brings to the party. But like I say, I think there'll be a little lag, 3 to 6 months before that comes in. And then it will really start to see applications. And hopefully it's just a really great add-on. It will shake up a number of markets. And I'm sure there'll be a huge strategic shift in lots of places. But we've seen that before. Hopefully it's a quick adjustment and it's it's a net positive rather than a net negative, which I'm sure will be the case. I'm hopeful will be the case. And yeah, just looking at it, ever the optimist. But it's not my field of expertise, but I think it's going to be an absolute game changer and we shall very much see. So there's my 5 predictions. Balancing the books with the economy, artificial intelligence, increasing of that gap, so go out there, make things happen. The growth plan strategically, just to manage your expectations, what's coming. And then that'll be the beginning of phase 3. And this new age of entrepreneurs, a new age of property entrepreneurs who want to be highly lucrative, highly leveraged, have a great lifestyle, a solid income, and sort of break away from this framework and society that a lot of people are now potentially trapped in, but also realised that's not the only way. So welcome to 2023. It's going to be a huge year. It's definitely one for levelling up. We are levelling up all of our property entrepreneurs this year. Our headline strategy, as is with a lot of the entrepreneurs, is level up. And what that means is taking everything to the next level, stepping up everything we do. And as you'll see over the coming weeks and months, that includes a lot of the content that we're going to be giving to you. So stay tuned. Make sure if you've not already liked or subscribed this podcast, please click that now. Make sure you don't miss an episode every Tuesday. And with that in mind, I'll see you on the next one.